Good morning, everybody. Pastor Stitch, Narrow Path Christian Church, BC, Bay City, Michigan. Welcome to the Biker Devotional. So this morning as I'm sitting here, a question came to mind. And I'll be honest, I've been sitting here for 10 minutes trying to convince God to let me talk about something else because it's a subject that I want to avoid. I don't want to talk about it. It's a subject you don't want me to talk about. But that doesn't do any of us any good. It's a subject that needs to be discussed. And I don't have perfect answers. That's why I don't want to talk about it. But let me ask a question this morning, and I think it's important. Is death a punishment? That's the question. Is death a punishment? Don't we act like it is? Don't we cry out and mourn and scream and yell at God when someone dies in our life that it's too soon and why would you do this, God? Don't we treat it like it is a punishment? I do. But I got to ask myself the question, is death a punishment? Or is it part of the circumstance of this flesh? We put a lot of weight into things that just automatically happen. Everyone dies. So, is it a punishment? You know, I was reading this morning in the book of Lamentations. Jeremiah, it's believed, everybody pretty much agrees, Jeremiah wrote the book of Lamentations. And it's interesting that when it was translated from Hebrew and Chaldean to Greek into the Septuagint, the person that wrote the Septuagint put this at the beginning of the writings for Lamentations. And it came to pass that after Israel had been carried away captive and Jerusalem became desolate, that Jeremiah sat weeping and lamenting with his lamentations over Jerusalem. Jeremiah chapter 3, the very beginning of it, he goes through a long litany of lists of things that he has experienced in his life that you and I would call punishment. Matter of fact, Jeremiah called it punishment. I am a man who has seen afflictions under the rod of God's wrath. He has driven me away and forced me to walk. It's just the first. Forced to walk in darkness instead of light. That was the first two verses of chapter 3. In verse 19, he says, "Remember my afflictions and my homelessness, the wormwood and the poison. I continually remember them and have become depressed." He's gone through a long list of things that have gone horrible in his life. Terrible, terrible circumstances. And then he says, "Yet I call this to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's faithful love, we do not perish. For his mercies never end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say the Lord is my portion, therefore I will put my hope in him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the person who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for deliverance from the Lord. It is good for a man to bear the yoke while he's still young. Let him sit alone and be silent, for God has disciplined him. Let him put his mouth in the dust. Perhaps there is still hope. Let him offer his cheek to the one who would strike him. Let him be filled with shame. For the Lord will not reject us forever. Even if he causes suffering, he will show compassion according to his abundant, faithful love. For he does not enjoy bringing affliction or suffering on mankind. Jeremiah knew suffering. He watched death. He was still able to say, the Lord's faithful love, we do not perish. His mercies are new every morning. He was able to say, great is your faithfulness, Lord. Over the last couple of years, all we've seen and heard every day is about the death toll, the number of dead, the number of people that are languishing in the hospital. We see it constantly. Let me ask you the question again. Is death a punishment? Let the Spirit of God answer that for you. Like I said, I didn't want to talk about it this morning. But there's somebody out there that absolutely needs to ask that question and answer it honestly. Because yes, it feels like a punishment. I know that. But can you honestly say that death is a punishment when you know that every human being has to die? It's okay to lament. Jeremiah wrote a whole book of it. But in those laments, you have to remember who God is. You have to remember his love and his faithfulness. You have to draw close to that hope again. Because if you don't, there's no point. Yes, it's difficult. I don't like it any more than you do. But it is critical. I love you all. I truly do. I wish you the best of days today and going forward. Don't forget, today's the 3rd day of January. Have you read your Proverbs chapter 3 today? God bless.